said, we're going to be doing a pretty simple install. Maybe takes 30 minutes to an hour at most. So if you don't have any experience of electronics at all, this is actually probably a perfect place to start. This is one of the simplest installs you can do for your car. So with the things you'll need, first thing you're going to need to pick up a can of Plasti Dip. Then you're going to need some wire cutters to help cut some zip ties. Normally the kits will come with zip ties, but it's just enough. And in case you mess up, which you probably will and want to mess around with the placement a little bit, pick up some extra zip ties if you don't already have some, which you should definitely have some. Now, this is where it starts getting a little tricky. This is probably the hardest part, is just figuring out what size fuse you need. For me, this is a 92 Miata. It uses standard fuse sizes. If it's a newer vehicle, it's probably going to be minis. But you're just going to want to pick up any fuse that's the right amps and size for your car. You might have to do a little bit of research, or even if you just go to AutoZone or something like that, they can look it up and tell you. So you're going to want to get at least one or two of these fuses in case you mess up. And then the second thing that you're going to need to buy that won't come with the kit is some crimp-on eye connections. Now with these, you can bend these in any way. They just run along a bolt, and this is just to ground it off. So you're just going to find any bolt that goes into metal on your vehicle. It could be something from a trim piece or anything like that. Pull it out, run this onto there, and then bolt it back down. This is just going to give it a secure metal plate to go against, and make sure you get good ground from that. Now, if you have a wider car or just don't have enough wiring in general at all, something like these are really good where you can extend the wires. You can pick up some extra wiring, put the end from the kit into here, and put your extra wiring on the end if you need to lengthen any wires. It makes it to where you don't have to solder or do electrical tape or anything like that. Now, one thing else you're going to need, which I actually don't have an extra one of because I already have it installed, but it's called a fuse tap. And basically it's a piece of wire with a crimp connection on the end, so it's going to look like this where it crimps on. But there's going to be a spot where it looks like it already has a fuse, and then it has a spot for a fuse. So what you're going to want to do is, the spot that already has a fuse, you plug into where you want your power source to come from. So say if it's a fuse that normally runs the radio. You plug the fuse tap into that, then you go ahead and plug a normal fuse into the side, and then the wire coming off is going to be your power wire. There's no light overhead, so if it's nighttime, all I have is these crappy lights, which don't even work half the time. I don't know if the wiring's gone bad or what, but even when they do work, these are half the brightness of my phone screen, so it's really, really useless. So what I decided to do, so I can actually see what I was doing, is it's a little bit ricey, but these lights underneath actually really do help, and you can change them to any color or anything like that. Most of the time I just keep them on blue or white for less rice, but if you wanted to, you can plug in your phone. It has a small mic in it, and if it's loud enough, it'll pick up the sound from the speakers and actually go along with the music, which is kind of cool, I guess, if you're at a beat or something like that and want to do something like that. But for me personally, it really just helps seeing this car at night, because between that and then the radio, I can actually see decently in here, even with no overhead lights. So I'm going to show you how to install it really quick. Alright, for this next part, you're going to want a flashlight, and you're going to have to be decently flexible, because if you have a Miata especially, you're going to have to sit upside down in the seat or at some really weird angles, this isn't fun, but you know what, it's the only way really to install this, and when you're sitting like that for a while, you get used to it. But you're going to look at the fuse box. So for me, I just went with this fuse right here. This powers my radio and a couple other things. So when I pull this out right here, this is the fuse tap. So this goes where the existing fuse was. You put a normal fuse in the side, then it already has a small fuse with it too. So you have two fuses in the side right here, the one you bought and the one it came with. Then you have the part that actually plugs into where it went. And then coming off this, as you can see, there's a wire, and that's going to be your power wire, so that's what's going to lead back to your kit. So now that it's plugged back in, as you can see, I have the wire ran up, it's crimped up there, it's kind of hard to see. Then you can just use some zip ties or whatever to keep that out of the way. I have a zip tie here and just some extra wire bundled back there. That way it doesn't get entwined with your pedals or anything. But basically, when you get your kit, it's just going to have a wire, and then that's what you're going to crimp on to the fuse tap. So that wire is coming from here, which I'm going to show you how to run that. So I actually have the kit turned on to see a little bit better in here, but I ran all four wires down and zip tied it right here to hold them together, and I just tucked it up behind the carpet. And for me, I was able to put all my excess wire behind this foot piece right here, and there's a spot down here where I can push all the wire behind it, so it's all bundled up behind here. Then for my ground, I found these two bolts right here. As I was able to take this one out, I slightly bent the eye connection to where it could fit right here, and it's crimped on right here. And I put the bolt back on, and that got me some decent ground. And then at this point, you should be able to test your wiring kit before you hook everything up. So go ahead and just make sure it comes on and off. So we'll have some on-off buttons on the side. You can change the mode here in the middle. Then this is the sound mode down here if you get the same kit as this one. And once you make sure everything's working good, then you're going to have to start running your wires. So for the top part right here, you should be able to, like I said, take most of the excess right here. And then just right up the side or whatever, it's out of the way of all your pedals. I was going to get the 2-piece kit, but I went with the 4 because I was going to mount it underneath the seats, but I couldn't find a good place to mount it, so I just put 2 bars on each side. So I have 2 here and then 2 on the other side. And I just zip tied it up to the bundle of wires up here. Make sure it's not pulling too much on any of the wires. So if you find a good bundle like this, best case scenario is you can find a piece of metal or plastic to mount it to. But if you have to, you can mount it to most of this wiring and it won't. But you just want to kind of play around with it a little bit and just find what looks good for the lighting. So keep just kind of backing up and taking a look and see what looks alright for the lighting. You can try different colors and everything like that just to make sure it's shining on everything good and how you want it. Because you have to adjust it to make sure it gets good. So say if it's not coming all the way up or that it's all too bright back here or anything like that, you can twist the bars, move them around, and then actually lock it down with the zip ties. So then once you get all that, every car that I know of should have a pass-through for the center console. So back behind here, it can be hard to see at times, but there should be a hole back there that will allow it to go to the other side. In fact, it is this hole right here. So that goes all the way through to the other side of the car. So that's where you're going to run the other 2 bars through, or the wiring, whatever might be easier. So you have the kit on this side and, you know, the control and everything. So you're going to make sure you can access it from the driver's side. That's another thing, is you can mount this control box anywhere. I mounted it right here because it's next to the speaker for sound. It's out of the way. Over here for me, it was just a little bit too much in the way. It's nice and hidden there. You could even mount it up under the dash if you really wanted to. Or I've seen people even mount it in the center console. If that's really what you want to go for, you can run the wiring, mount it in there, and then it's completely out of the way. But you're going to want to get the other 2 bars to the other side somehow. Now, once you do that, I think this side's actually a little bit easier because you have the mounts for the glove box. So as you can see underneath there, there's some rails for the glove box, and it makes it a whole lot easier to mount the kit to. So I don't know if it's that easy to see, but there's this rail running along here, and you can normally zip tie the kit to that pretty easily. This side's pretty self-explanatory. You'll already have all the excess wire back on the left side. So this side, it's just going to be zip tying these bars to this rail or whatever is easy to zip tie to over there. So once your kit's all wired up and it's in a good spot, then the finished product will look something kind of like this. As you can see, it lights up the floorboards really well even during the daytime. Of course, I have my garage right now, but at night it'll light up most of the inside of the car, which is really, really nice if you don't have a overhead light for at nighttime. And if you wanted to use it, this is the music mode, which is pretty cool for if you go to a parking lot or something like that. Other than that, I mean, I would think this would be pretty distracting on the road. Something else that's kind of nice is what I did is if you don't have a Bluetooth radio, I just ran the auxiliary cable underneath the trim, so it's just this one little piece showing all that's ran under here, and it comes out into the center console, so I can just plug my phone into there. Guys, thanks again for watching. It's a super easy install. Maybe it takes an hour at most. It's a good way to get to know your car and some electronics while you're at it. And it looks pretty cool and it's functional. I mean, if you don't have any kind of overhead lighting, it really helps at night. It's taken away all the times trying to find my phone and use that for a light, so it's nice. Thanks guys, and you have a good one.